Hey, so thanks for jumping on this presentation about SPEC Tennis. This was originally done live on the USPTA New England conference, but due to some technical errors, we've chosen to redo the presentation. Thanks for watching, hope you enjoy. And so today I'm going to talk about how SPEC Tennis can really be the ultimate tennis success tool. You can skyrocket your revenues and bulletproof your tennis program using SPEC Tennis without having to modify your facility. And it's a system that you can implement today. So as a tennis pro, I often ask myself the question, how can players improve faster? And I created SPEC Tennis in 2016, and I started to realize that this was actually the solution to getting my players improving faster. Because if they improve faster, retention goes up, they have a lot more fun, they're more motivated to play on their own, and they reach a higher level long term. With SPEC Tennis, every skill directly translates to tennis. So I teach it the same way that I would in tennis. And once they've got it, then you can transition them to a tennis racket. So I wanted to test drive my theory. So about 16 weeks ago, I went through the formal process to set up a junior clinic through a local town near me. And we marketed the clinic as a new and exciting way to learn tennis. I was actually quite nervous driving to the courts the first day because I was about to experience something that I'd never experienced before, which was teaching a clinic by myself with 14 players. Yes, this was by design. It wasn't an accident. And as a tennis pro, I'm sure you're used to a 4-to-1 or a 6-to-1 player to coach ratio. And I'm also used to that as well. So I knew that in order for the class to be successful, it had to be very well structured. My goal in the class was to get every player reaching a rallying level because I find that's often a missing piece in tennis. We teach so much on technique out of a basket, but kids don't get to play against their peers, which is what they enjoy the most. And so a lot of them actually drop out of tennis without being given that full experience because they never reach a rallying level. So my goal for this 4 weeks was to get every player rallying, and it was successful. By the end, every player could actually play and not just hit the ball. They could perform some form of a rally with a partner. Now, the clinics weren't traditional tennis, they were SPEC Tennis. So you can see the paddles there in the picture. And SPEC Tennis is played on any pickleball court, tennis court, or even platform tennis court. I know a lot of you on the East Coast have platform tennis courts that go unused in the summer. This is a perfect opportunity to utilize the platform tennis court with the lights, generating extra revenue there. It's played with an 18-inch foam core paddle and an orange dot low compression tennis ball. By having the sweet spot of the paddle closer to the hand, players are able to have more success often, which leads to more fun and enjoyment overall. Now, at this point, you're probably thinking 14 players, Nate, you're crazy. That would be total chaos. You'd get a lot of complaints from parents. How did you manage a class like that? And that's what I thought first when I tried it. But after going through this 4-week class, I ran 2 more sessions after that for a total of 12 weeks with between 12 and 14 players in each class and oftentimes with a waiting list. And I got no parent complaints. In fact, many parents asked that I offer the class more often. Now, how I structured the class in terms of charging for it was $50 a player. So times 14 players, that's $700 for a 4-week, 1-hour-a-week class. So that's a pretty good return coming back to me from this class. Now, what's most important though is how I structured the clinics. And so I ran caution tape from one back fence to the other on a tennis court to create mini courts going sideways so that I could fit all of those players in the confined space. And everything was very progression based. There was no overload of technical information because with me being the only instructor, I didn't want to spend a lot of time with each player because I had to move around quickly. And then also I find that players zone out very quickly if you give them too much technical information. They'll just stop listening altogether. And then number 2 was I believe a lot in self-guided learning where if a player can figure something out on their own, it's going to stick better than if a coach is constantly telling them that. And adding to that, I wanted players to be able to simply explain the drills and games that we did in the class to their parents or peers so that they could go out and practice on their own. Which brings me to my next point, the practice problem. I find that there's a really big practice problem in tennis. I'm sure you've all experienced it where you give a great lesson, you're working on a certain skill, but then the player doesn't practice that skill before next week's lesson. And so it's oftentimes not the player's fault. It's simply because practicing something in tennis can be quite difficult with a player of the same level. And so I began to realize as well that SPEC Tennis can be the perfect solution for getting players practicing, because you can do it in a small space. You can do it with players who are of mixed levels. Even if one player doesn't have a paddle, you can have fun practicing in the driveway, at home, or on any tennis or pickleball court. And so I decided that I needed to address this problem in my clinics, because the first session went well, but for the next sessions, I began giving them choices. They could either rent a paddle from me or buy a paddle that they would take home. That way they were able to practice on their own. And I noticed even better results after I did it this way, because it was evident that a lot of players were actually practicing with their parents or their peers. Now, you might be wondering the types of drills that were done in these classes. Here's a photo from one of the classes. Notice that everything is rally based. So from day one, the players feel like they're actually playing, and it's also partner based. Working with emphasis on control a lot of the time. Some things are done over the net, some things are not. And we're really focusing on sending and receiving skills, because I find that receiving skills are often ignored. We're often so focused on hitting the ball, but not focused on how to receive it. And then you see everything is also progression based. So this makes it very easy to challenge a player or give a player more success if they're struggling. So to simply move a player up to the next progression if they need a challenge, or move a player back to a previous progression if they need more success. And this also allows you to pair two different level players together, and no one's feeling like it's wasting their time. The ability to practice at home, you see I set a net up in the driveway here, but you can do it without a net. And even high level players can practice at home. Imagine doing this with a tennis racket with a yellow ball. It would be very hard to control the ball in this small space, but here he's able to take full swings at the ball, his normal tennis swing, and keep it in. And you can see someone sent me this video. They're even playing it inside of the airport. Think about what sport can you play inside of the airport without getting in trouble. SPEC Tennis is one of them. Now you're probably wondering, okay, this is great for juniors, but does this work for adults as well? And the answer is 100%. So here's an example. I had two ladies in a tennis lesson for the past 9 months. Here's one of them here. From day one, I started them off with SPEC Tennis. I gave them paddles to take home. They were expected to practice on their own, bring the paddles back to the lesson. And with every new skill, I introduced it first with SPEC Tennis. And once they got it, they had a lot of success. They were having fun. They built up the confidence. Then I transitioned them to a tennis racket. So practicing the same skill, just using a different tool. And so by doing this, the players felt like they were able to play. They were able to rally with each other right away. And I'm 100% confident that they reached a higher level in tennis than they would have had we just been with the tennis rackets the whole time. Here's an example of the serve, right? Giving her the confidence from the service line with both the paddle and the racket. Then when we move back to the baseline, she doesn't do as well, but at least she built that confidence and she knows that she can do it, as opposed to just putting her back at the baseline right away, having her struggle, and then she decides that she hates serving. And so you're probably thinking, all right, this sounds good, but my club is so busy and we have low bandwidth. We don't have room to add something else. And I want you to not think of adding SPEC Tennis as taking up bandwidth at your facility, but just think of it as enhancing your program. So you can insert this into any aspect of your tennis program and have great success, whether that be more the instructional side or the social side. Plus, you're going to get a lot of members that wouldn't normally come out for tennis that are willing to come out for SPEC Tennis when they see that lower barrier of entry. You might also be thinking that pickleball is the popular thing right now, and I need to focus on how I can generate revenue from pickleball. I want you to think about, where does the revenue in pickleball come from, though? In my opinion, most of the time it comes from the social side. So things like social events, leagues, tournaments, court rentals, but less from the instruction side. And I believe this is because the demographic of players that are playing pickleball often aren't those who are looking to take a weekly lesson, or if they are, they reach a high enough level quickly to where they feel like they can just go out and play socially. But SPEC Tennis is different because yes, the learning curve is a lot less than tennis, but you can directly feed it into tennis. So if a player feels like they need more challenge, then you just simply switch them over to tennis. So you can generate a lot of revenue from lessons and clinics. And plus, you have the added benefit of being able to fit 4 times more players per tennis court than you can with regular tennis. So you could set up 4 courts on 1 tennis court, and also you can increase the player to pro ratio like I demonstrated in those clinics that I was running. Or you might be a tennis only facility where you've only done tennis since your club was founded, and that's fine as well. But I want you to think about soccer for a second. At the high levels of soccer, they're now using futsal to train for soccer. And futsal is essentially a different form of soccer played on a smaller field with fewer players. And this really improves players' control and tactical awareness. Players such as Ronaldinho and Neymar and Messi, they've all accredited futsal as really getting them to a high level in soccer. So I want you to think about the same thing with tennis. If you use SPEC Tennis to train players for tennis, you're really going to improve their control and tactical awareness, because players have to figure out how to end the point on the smaller court with their opponent having the ability to get more balls back. So I'm quickly going to go through what others are doing in the country throughout the world. Here's Meredith Walton. She's the former director of the clubs at Kingwood in Texas. Some of you might know Timo Seibert at Charter Oak. He's had great success with SPEC Tennis at his club. Ricardo Marcatoli started SpecTennisFlorida.com. Paul Amron in Savannah, Georgia at Savannah Tennis Academy. He actually converted permanently a few of his Hartrue tennis courts into SPEC tennis courts. Notice there's no pickleball kitchen, so these are only used for SPEC tennis, and they're having a lot of fun over there. And here's a video of them playing on the clay. So in case you're wondering about the bounce, it works really well on the clay. I know that's been a challenge for pickleball a bit, is having the right bounce on the clay courts. Michael Mercier at Harvard has introduced it and has big plans for SPEC tennis there. So if you know Mike, feel free to reach out to him, see what his experience has been like with SPEC tennis. The former Twitter COO, Adam Bain, he actually learned his topspin one-handed backhand using SPEC tennis. He thinks that SPEC tennis is absolutely fantastic. You can check out the full video at spectennis.com. And there's also a lot of testimonials on spectennis.com. So here we have both written and audio testimonials from some big names like Dave Fish, Dan Regan, Sterling Strother, and Bill Patton. And so to recap, if you add SPEC Tennis to your program, you're going to be able to attract new players, like those players that normally just use the pool at your club. They might actually come out and start playing SPEC Tennis when they see that it's not going to take a lot to be able to have fun with it, be able to rally, be able to play with their family. So you can grow the size of your program. And because of this increasing your program size, like I just mentioned, you'll be able to develop players faster because they're having more fun, they're having more success. Less frustration means that they want to go out and play more often, right? They're not getting into arguments when they're going out there playing with their parents because they're having more success. And they're also more inclined to practice on their own when they feel like they can have success and have fun. You're going to see higher retention in your programs, right? I heard the other day from Dave Fish that 80% of players that enter tennis in the red ball stage, they don't make it to yellow ball. So that's a very low retention rate. And I really think that SPEC Tennis can help improve this retention rate because you're giving players more success. You're getting them to actually be able to play the game rather than just stand in a line and hit the ball. And I really believe there's huge revenue potential here because once again, it can fuel your tennis program. You can do SPEC Tennis lessons on their own, or you can have people directly feeding into tennis. And I think with you potentially being one of the first people in your area, that's really a blue ocean opportunity, right? If not many other people in your area are doing that's going to attract a lot of new people to your program. And so if you're ready to skyrocket your revenues and bulletproof your program, by bulletproofing it, I mean really increasing player retention. So you have more players coming in than are going out. You're not constantly having to replenish your players that are joining your clinics, etc. You have two options. I set up a special link for USPTA, spadesports.com/products/USPTA. You can get started with a starter pack, which includes 4 paddles, 2 cans of balls, a strategy call with me, and ongoing support as well via email, text, phone for $227. This retails for $297. So you're getting some savings there. Or you can become an ambassador of SPEC Tennis. So if you feel that you want to promote SPEC Tennis at the same time that you're implementing it into your program, you can go to spectennis.com, click on income creating category, and then click on ambassadors. And there's an application there that you can fill out. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. If you have any questions at all, feel free to email me, nate@spectennis.com. And I want to leave you with one final question. What's the cost of not taking action, right? We've seen a little bit of a boom with tennis during the pandemic, but I think it might be slightly artificial. because a lot of activities weren't open, especially indoor activities. So parents and players are looking for things that they can do, and tennis was one of them. But tennis hasn't shown the best growth the past 10 years. And I think with adding SPEC Tennis in, that really removes a lot of the barriers to entry to tennis and will get more players playing the sport and eventually playing tennis. I'm going to leave you with one final video. Once again, head over to spectennis.com if you'd like to learn more. And this video just shows that this sport can be enjoyed at all levels, not just at the beginning levels as a teaching tool, but it's very fun, very social, even at the highest of levels. So thanks. And once again, that link to get the starter pack is spadesports.com/products/USPTA. Becoming an ambassador, you can go to spectennis.com. Thanks, and I hope to talk to you soon.